Hi, everybody. I'm Diane Brady. I'm here with Ben Kaufman, who is the CEO and co-founder of Camp. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you.
And the, I guess, creative genius behind this ad that went out by email last week when Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. You sent out an ad basically telling people, I think bank run was the promo code I saw. First of all, what was the genesis of that? Walk me back to when you sort of saw what was happening and went, oh.
It's funny to think about it now as an ad, which I understand why you're saying that. But at the time, if you rewind back to Friday, that was a very real email. It was a plain text email. It said, "I need your help. We have no access to our cash. I don't know how we're going to operate this business. We set up a new bank account. Any sales we get over the weekend will go into that new bank account and help us continue to do what we do." That was very real.
But there was humor in it. I mean, that's maybe what struck me, because I'm trying to think of things like, I never liked the Bay Area when your bank collapses. I mean, let's just say there's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek aspect to this.
So what you're describing is the Instagram post that followed the email.
Ah, okay.
And
so
yes, I mean, anything.
Culpa.
Listen, I run a toy store.
Let's go to the blue period of the email then. The blue period. That was when you sent out the email basically saying help.
Help. And then we followed up with a kind of meme style, cute Instagram ad, and but it was all very real. I mean, it was a cry for help. We didn't know what was going to be, but we knew we had a loyal customer base that would maybe support us through the weekend. And
we're discussing this in the context of knowing that you will be made whole at this point, because the news is out. The FDIC stepped in to say nobody's going to lose their deposits, but we all know about this cap. It's never occurred to me that any bank would not give me my money if bad things happened. Was that immediately obvious to you that your money could be at risk?
I never had to think about this. We have enough stuff in our world, right? Enough stuff in startups. There's in a startup like ours, we're building stores, we're moving sets from store to store, we're serving families every day, we're buying inventory. Yes,
right?
yeah. Thinking about whether or not our bank was okay. It was never on our list. It was never on our list. It wasn't a consideration.
What is it? Silicon Valley Bank, I don't want to commoditize the different banks, but was there a particular reason why that bank was the bank of choice for startups like yourself?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days of Camp, Silicon Valley Bank was the only bank willing to extend us a line of credit, which is helpful when you have a business like ours that has real working capital demands, inventory, et cetera. So we went with them because we really had no other choice.
Yeah.
And one of the stipulations of having a line of credit with them, which, by the way, we no longer had, we had moved to a different working capital facility, but one of the
called JP Morgan. No,
that's
different.
Different working capital credit line, and but one of the stipulations, if you had a credit line at SVB, at least for us, was that you had to keep all your deposits there.
Oh, really?
So we were locked in for a period of time. Now, we since again moved on from that line of credit, so we could have, and in hindsight, probably should have had cash in more places or in a more diversified portfolio, but we didn't.
There's been trouble in, let's say, tech, but obviously the economy's been a challenge for some time. I mean, were you seeing anything coming that was giving you pause or concern? I mean, I know what happened with Silicon Valley Bank was very sudden, but I'm curious if there was anything on the horizon that gave you concern about capital, et cetera.
I mean, I wasn't worried about the bank. I have lots of other worries in my world. Companies like ours require growth capital in order to keep doing what we're doing, and building stores and continuing
growth
to roll
capital
out.
Being from venture capitalists for the most part.
Usually.
Do you think this is going to have an impact on that?
I don't see how it doesn't. Everyone was on edge already for the last 6 or 8 months, or I guess it's maybe close to 12 months now since the market dipped.
Yeah.
And this is just another oh wow, we have to add a whole nother variable. So it's a scary time.
Are you still scared, or did you feel a sigh of relief when you knew, okay, well, at least my money's going to stay there?
I'm grateful the Fed stepped in and secured SVB deposits. What is even better is that it's amazing to feel that your customers have your back. I mean, the outpouring of support that we had this weekend was amazing. We sold more product in 48 hours than we usually sell in a month.
Really? Do you want to say how much, or is that I'd tell you, but I have to shoot you?
I think not dollars, but like, we sold over 100,000 units of product in 48 hours.
Wow.
Now, again, when I sent that email, it was mutually beneficial. You get a discount, we get front-loaded cash because we might need it on Monday. And it worked. And so those two things give me comfort. The broader market issues, whether or not companies like ours that are doing hard and complicated things can thread the needle on further growth equity fundraises is less, I have less confidence in that, I'll say.
So one of the tweets you has, camp is hard to operate. Is that just simply capital costs, or what did you mean by that?
A lot of capital to keep camp moving, right? There's stores, there's shows, there's inventory, etc. It's also very operationally complex. If you think about what we're doing, we're running a traveling entertainment company, right? We have 9 physical locations.
You have actual camps. I've sent
the shows move from location to location, so we're moving these big theatrical sets around the country. We're operating a 4-wall retail store, which is notoriously hard. We're in the kids business, which is usually one of the hardest businesses to be in. And we have online channels and brand sponsorships and partnerships that we also execute. So we're like one part media company, one part retailer, one part on the edge of tech, and it's just like a lot of moving parts. And the beautiful thing about it, from my perspective, is if you're a customer, if you're a little kid or you're a parent, you don't see any of that. To you walk into camp and it just feels like it all should be there. It feels very right. But as a business, it's like there's a lot of engines that need to move every day in order to make the whole machine operate.
It's interesting that one of your first reactions was to maybe it wasn't your first, was to reach out to customers, because some people might feel naked almost as a co-founder, CEO, saying, help. Did you have pause at all, or did you think, well, they're my customers, they should know what's going on?
It was such a public news story that it at least my feeling at the time was that there's no harm. I didn't know if we were going to be able to have cash next week. So what's the worst that could happen? People are like, you might not have cash next week. Yes, this is all true. These are all facts. One of my least favorite things about being a CEO is an expectation of a scripted narrative, and to not do things like. You mean like
leadership haiku sort of moments?
Yeah, it's just hand waving and saying very little to just get to the next. I've always been a very transparent person to a fault, and I catch a lot of heat for that. But it just felt like a time to be real, and it was amazing to see the support customers had for us. They got a great deal at the end of the day.
40% in some cases, yeah.
A lot of people didn't even use the code. That's how much people really supported the
bank run code.
How great is that?
Shame on them, right? One of the things that happens with every crisis is we pivot. There's always I guess you'd say more than Monday morning quarterback. We always retroactively fix things so it doesn't happen again, right? Yeah. The same way we had laws after the 2008 crisis. Now, I guess maybe we increased the cap. We now know that cap perhaps is an artificial cap because the FDIC will step in. Yeah. But are there lessons for somebody? Let's take it away from you. What should have been done differently to not put you in that crisis? I mean, you're not a pundit on the banking sector.
I'm not a banking guy. I have no idea.
But when you even talk about the people who are funding you, when you think about your own sources of credit, I don't know if there's lessons in this, or if it's just you survived to tell another tale.
I'm a marketer. To me, it shows the importance of brand. Like at least our own personal experience is what did we trade on this weekend? We traded on our brand story. And that brand story, even if the FDIC did not come to, or the Fed come to the rescue, we would have been okay this week. We would have been okay for a number of weeks to find a way to sort through things, because people came out to support our brand. And brand is this mythical thing that people don't really
it's like quite culture, understand. Right? When it's good or bad, but it's hard to
But like moments like this, or when brand matters, you see who stands behind you, and yeah, again, it was a vulnerable moment. And would I do things a little differently if I did it again? Absolutely. You learn a lot through these processes, but it was the right thing for camp at the time.
Now that in the economy that we're in right now, when you look at your own growth picture, have you shifted some of your own aspirations, whether in light of this or more generally? The economy hasn't been that bad, has it? I mean,
the startup environment is very different than it was, in the past years. I think ultimately we'll net out for the better. Like, I think that a more conservative approach to growth is the right one, and it's a bit more fundamental than just chasing the big valuations and the big numbers. But what I hope doesn't happen is that we sway too far to the other side, where big, great ideas that deserve to exist in the world, that make customers happy, that help families create memories like ours, aren't lost in the process. So yeah, there's definitely a shift, but hopefully it nets out for the better. And the risk is that big ambitious ideas don't get funded or sustained.
Have you talked to anybody else? You obviously talked to your employees, and you talked to your customers. Did the bank ever call you, SVB? They didn't, even with all what's to say? 50, hey, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 50% of startups banked at SVB, right? That's the number that was floating around. There's thousands of companies. SVB had a lot of employees, but they were technically, I think, laid off and then rehired. Like, who would have called? It was so quick. It was so abrupt that.
I want to ask you one other question, which is, a lot of people are blaming, well, there's many things to blame, but one is this long period of zero interest, near zero interest rates, right? And then this sudden acceleration of interest rates, that was what caused, the bank to have trouble. It also, made people over-index and take on too much debt. I mean, when you think about your own investment picture of how you built camp to date, you must have been aware of what was happening in the inflation environment, of course. How were you dealing with it just as a founder yourself?
It was just one of the many things we tackled. I mean, if you think about the business we started an indoor environment where families all, are on top of each other and play. In 2018-19, a year into our development, COVID happened. Our stores were shut for 6 months. We wrestled our way through that and fought our way through that, and then Omicron came. So we've been constantly dealing with some extraneous circumstance that has put our business at risk in a big existential way. I will be honest. Like, interest rates is not something that is in my mind every day. Perhaps it should be. But we focus on the product we put forth to the customer, and we're strong believers that if you make cool things that customers love and you treat customers really well, regardless of the environment, people are likely going to still have children, and so
one hope
customers are going to keep coming in the door, and we hope to serve them, and everything else hopefully will work itself out.
So has it altered your strategy at all? I mean, are you optimistic about growth? Have you changed?
I'm so optimistic about the growth of camp. I don't fully control that though, right? There is so much environmental, effects on a business like ours, because we are at the forefront of consumer and talking every day to people affected by all of these extraneous circumstances as well. So it's the growth in our business is insane. We're over 100% growth year over year in our stores. We're hoping to open 3 more stores in the next quarter or so.
Bootstrapping at this point? No.
I mean, for now we have we haven't raised capital in 14 plus months, and I would love to be able to, but it's been
note to all VCs out there. This man wants money, and
always.
Well, one last thing, which is I never liked the Bay Area anyway. Practically, is that Is that Ben Kaufman secretly speaking? I mean, I just thought that was both funny, but yet you kind of touch a nerve there in some ways.
Been a New York startup guy for 15 plus years.
Need we say more?
Ride or die. But yeah, I mean, it was a joke.
Of course, it's a joke.